All right. Looks like I've actually got a few viewers already. I'm just starting my first live stream, so welcome everybody. Looks like I've got Soy Thing Sing. I don't know if I pronounced that close to right at all, but welcome. And Homo Ludens, welcome you guys. So, you know, I kind of had this goal today to work on some of the sprite work for the Action RPG tutorial series. I've needed to get some of this done before I can move forward with the next part of that series. And so I thought, since I'm able to spend some time on this today, I would stream it. It would help me do kind of two birds with one stone, right? So, you know, it's kind of fun. One of the things I'm going to be working on here next is actually the equipment, I guess, and gear. So I'll kind of show you guys a few things I've been working on. Hey, 7sim of a 7sim. It's funny to read names because I never know how I'm supposed to say them. And Kasun Lianaga. Hola. Welcome, guys. I wonder if you speak Spanish, but hablo un poco español. So this is what I've got going on. I'm going to be building an inventory system with the Action RPG where we're going to have weapons and armor. And I'm considering adding something like an amulet and a ring system that could give abilities. Although I don't have that part is fleshed out. The weapons and the armor are going to be pretty easy, right? Because it just adds to the player's attack or defense. And by the way, guys, let me know if the sound is all right. And if, you know, I've got a little bit of music playing, it should be pretty quiet and low though. But yeah, so I've got these little icons, and you know, by default, the player starts with a sword that I've drawn an icon for the sword that will display in the inventory that looks like this. And I've only drawn one other icon. I did this just the other day, so kind of like a katana or something like that. So I'm going to build out some weapons. And then what I really want to focus on today, and I think this will be a good introduction into how I use Aseprite for something more complex like my player, is I'm going to be working on the player more than anything. So we've got the player here, and this is going to be kind of complicated in some ways. So we're going to get it. And what I mean by that is when we get back to the tutorial series with this artwork, we're going to have to split up this player so that the sword or the weapon is a separate sprite sheet so that we can swap out just the weapon, right? I mean, that's something that I think most people would think would be awesome and would want to do. So we're going to be working on that, and I'll show you how I'm going to go about that. And what I'm going to do today, obviously, is just work on the sprite work. And then later on, I'll have tutorial videos about how we implement, or how I'm going to implement that. It's going to be a real basic paper doll kind of system, right? Where you can swap the sprite for just the player or the weapon and have those work together, okay? And it looks like I'm getting people joining. I've got 20 viewers, which, I mean, that's not a lot, but for my first stream ever, it feels pretty good. Let me see. Yeah, I'm excited to show some of my process and how I work. I think I've mentioned before, but you know, I went to school to be a graphic designer, and I love art, and I haven't shared a lot of my artwork, but that was kind of one of my original passions. And I work as a web designer and a front-end developer. And so game design is kind of an extension of that, but the art is kind of where I start. And so sometimes when I'm developing games, I start backwards. I start with the art first, which most people wouldn't recommend. But you're going to see a little bit of that today. Hi, Chowd. We've got a lot of people hopping in. Yeah, someone, Aravind is commenting, thank you a lot for doing this. Haven't quite wrapped my head around pixel art and hope to make or take away a few things from the stream. Yeah, I'll show some of the stuff I do. And Pimenta, yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad I can help you be excited and have a desire to make games. If nothing else, it's an amazing hobby. Yeah, my layer panel is intense. The reason it's intense is because it saves in the long run. Actually, what's funny, I'll just tell you guys, originally this sprite sheet was not so intense. It was maybe 2 layers. Aya says artists working on front end are her favorite front end devs. Yeah, we do like to make stuff pretty, and that's my primary role on the team. One of the people I work with is I was like, okay, I'm going to send it over to Mike to make it look pretty. But James James is got an excuse now to ignore his training this afternoon. Yeah, good job. You're welcome. Okay, so one thing I guess what I was saying is I only had a couple layers when I originally made the sprite for this game, and you can see I've split it up, and I want to go through this. And actually, there's a few animations, in particular these attack animations. They're still in the original format, so you can see I've got a layer for legs. I never drew that on these attack. I just have the body. I have all the character on one layer, and then of course I've got a backity back layer, which has a sword on it, and I've got a tippity top layer. I like to have fun naming them sometimes, but these are just layers when I need something that's just, it's just got to be on top, and I don't really care what it is, what it belongs to. Like, for example, if I look at the pickup sprites, you can see that the arms are on the tippity top, because otherwise, if I drew them as part of the body, which is how this file is kind of set up, they'd be beneath or behind the head. But yeah, so you can see, like, if I look at this first frame, I've got a layer for the head. This makes it nice. If you just need to animate the head by bobbing it, all you really have to do is copy the frame and just nudge it a pixel up or down or whatever. Body's same story, right? I tend to include arms on the body on a simple thing like this. Some of my more intricate pixel art I've done, I might actually have layers for the body and the arms separate, you know, so I've got the arms that are in the foreground and arms that are in the background. And then I've got legs. And that just helps because then you can copy, and sometimes you don't need to animate one of those sections, right? Sometimes, like, let's look at the walk. If we look at the walk, the head doesn't animate a whole lot. Just the little hair dingling right up there, right? It's just bobbing up and down. So it's nice to not have to draw around the head, and it becomes pretty easy to work around that. Likewise, the sword, all it does is move up and down, which is on the backity back layer for this here. And then the sword's on the tippity top layer for the, you know, the walking up direction. So yeah, that's kind of how I lay things out. A little bit of explanation there. Getting some more comments. I kind of want to hit some of these. Let's see. I've got some greetings from Loxhawk. Welcome guys. Jean-Marc, are you too late? No, I don't think so. I just started, yeah. So welcome guys. So let's go ahead and get into this. What I want to do is, and I might make a lot of mistakes today because I didn't have a real fine plan for this, just that I wanted to do it. But I want to break this sprite. I want to, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to take the sprite, this sprite sheet, and I'm going to split it into two so that when we get to having different weapons, or even maybe different outfits for the player, then I can just swap out just the weapon sprite and have that work. Okay, so what that's going to look like is I'm going to have to go through this sprite sheet, and I'm going to have to separate out the weapon. And so we can see here's the weapon. And I'm going to have to make a sprite sheet that just has the weapon, and I'll probably include in that sprite sheet a reference of the player so that as I'm animating new weapons, I can turn on this reference layer. Okay, you can see there's some attack animations, the sword's moving around. I'm going to have to separate the arms from the weapon on this one. There's some weird, you know, pixels sticking around. I don't need those. Okay, so we're going to work on that a little bit. And I'll try and do that part quick so that we can, whoa, I went all the way to the end, so that we can get into actually working on animating some of the swords and stuff. But another thing I'll point out, if you guys are new, haven't used Aseprite a whole lot, not only do I have layers, but I've got frames set up so you can see each animation segment. Like my walking animations each have a tag, and you just set up these tags and you have a from and a to frame. And then what's nice about this is, let's say you're working on the walk animation, you've got all your layers on. If you have your preview window open here, you can hit play, and you can even like right click on that and choose a playback speed. Sometimes I make it slow so I can see each frame, and it'll just play that tag. And even as I work on it, you know, it'll just update that live preview and just keep looping on those small set of frames. Pretty super handy. And you know, any good sprite animation software is going to have a feature like that. In fact, there's one that I think I want to do a stream where I test it out. I'm drawing a blank what it's called, but there's a sprite drawing software that was made in Godot. If anybody knows what that is, shout it out in the comments. Yeah, pixel art seems hard. Yeah, it is kind of hard. Bloodbath's asking if I remember them, and I don't know if I do. but welcome, I'm glad to have you. Yeah, Lox, there is a program. It's made in Godot. I'm just going to, if I try and think of it, I'm going to sit here for forever. But it was made in Godot, and it's for doing pixel art. And it looks fairly capable. I tried it out for like 5 minutes once, and I want to delve into it and see, because it's free. It's got a cool community behind it. Pixelorama. Yeah, that's it, Aya. That's the one. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. So if any of you don't have a Sprite and are trying to figure out how to get started, I would suggest giving Pixelorama a little go. Let me drag this over here. So this is, I'm here on the Godot engine page that's showcasing it, but you can see it's like a fully fleshed out pixel art drawing software. They've got a layer system and stuff like that, laid out differently than Aseprite, but I think it's fairly capable. I would say, as far as all the major features you would need to make pixel art, this appears to have them. So yeah, you guys can check that out. And Lox, yeah, thanks. He says that he appreciates the effort and dedication I put into the series. Yeah, I think I just came to a point where I thought I'm going to do it even if it's not super successful. But yes, let's see. Okay, let's get going. I'll get back to the comments in a second. But yeah, pixel art can be hard, especially if you're new. One thing I would recommend, and a lot of these sprites are available, you know, on my itch.io page for this, and obviously it's not the Aseprite files, but if you load those up, you can kind of get a feel for how I draw these things. I do have the advantage that I've drawn my whole life from, you know, every now and then. So let's see. So what I'm going to do, as I mentioned, I want to split this up. So I have my player sprite Aseprite file open, and I don't want to change anything in here right now because I don't want to ruin it. I'm going to go ahead and just save this as a new file real quick. So I've got a folder for my tutorial assets. I'll call this, I don't know what to call it. Maybe player sprite _weapons or something like that. I mean, depending on how you want to work, you could do all your weapons in one file, or you could maybe have one per weapon. So maybe I'll just call this like sword. And then if I decide to, you know, do something different later, I can. Okay, so what we need in this file is we kind of need everything flattened except the sword layers, right? And we have to keep in mind that sometimes the sword is behind and sometimes it's in front. And that's not going to matter too much in this file. We're going to handle the magic of that later when we bring this into Godot. And I'm not going to handle bringing it into Godot and setting that up in this live stream. I doubt we'll have time, but I do want to get everything split up and kind of start animating it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off backity back and tippity top. And I've got an effects layer too, which I haven't used a whole lot except in the spin attack. You can see it's got this whoosh in there. Better turn that off. Okay. That's kind of funny to watch him spinning. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these down, and I can't even remember the way I like to do this. Yeah, there's a merge down option. Okay. So I'm just going to merge these layers down. So now I've got, and I'm going to rename this from legs. I'm going to just call it reference. So now I should have, like, on every animation, I should have this reference layer that has the player. So now we just need to put the weapon in place, right? And the other thing I want to do is I'm going to turn off the reference layer, and I'm going to turn on backity back and tippity top. And I'm just going to drag these together. And before I flatten this, though, I'm going to go through and clean this up because I think there's some stray pixels. I think I just saw one. Yeah, right there. I'm just going to zoom in. What layer is that on? Backity back. Right click is usually just a quick way to erase a pixel if you need to. So I'm just going to go through and clean this up real quick. Oh yeah, see, this pickup. I think what I need to do on these is just, yeah, the tippity top for the pickup down. I just need to delete those. I don't need that layer at all. So I'm just going to click on it and hit the delete button. Okay. And then probably the same on these other pickup ones. I just got to make sure I delete the right layer. So you see on this other pickup, when he's facing up, the arms are actually in the backity back layer. There we go. And then on the side, let's see, they should be on the top. Yeah. So just clear those out. Oh boy, carry. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Accidentally did one. Just Control Z to undo that there. Pretty easy. Okay, yeah, got to keep that top layer. So I'm just going to delete these. And so one thing that's, let's see. What am I doing? Sorry, I'm getting confused here. Okay, yeah, the top layer again. What was I going to say? One thing that I'm not sure how I want to handle yet with this file is how to handle these, if I want to keep these layers separate. I don't really, you know, there's one major downside to layers, and that's that it's really easy to draw on the wrong layer. And then that kind of messes things up. But, you know, if you're able to stay disciplined and be careful, having the layers does help a lot. Let's see. Oh, Bloodbath is the one who made me make a video about the inventory duplication bug fix. Yeah, no, I've got a lot of bugs. I'm not going to hide it. That's okay. I mean, that's normal. And I'm not like a seasoned game dev or anything. You know, I haven't published anything on Steam yet, which I've considered making that a goal for this year. But given some of the other things I'm working on, I'm not sure if I can do that yet because I'm more focused on this channel right now. But, okay, I'm just going through and making sure I've got everything cleaned up. I don't love how this sword looks in this animation. But, you know, I'm thinking this is a good reason to keep the tippity top and backity back. You know, this is actually going to be a hard one. Let me turn this on. Because see here, sometimes, like if I stop on this frame and look at this, the sword is behind the player. The sheath is on top of the player. You know, and if these are just exported as one thing in a sprite sheet, that's actually not going to be easy to accomplish. And if we want so the question becomes, do we want the sheath to be different if your weapon changes, or should we just leave that alone and make it part of the player sprite? That's a tough question. I didn't think about that before because I hadn't actually started this work yet. I think I'm inclined to say that the easy thing for the tutorial series would be to just make the sheath part of the player sprite and not part of this weapon sprite. That way we only have to do the sword, the hilt, and the blade, you know? So like right here, we could change the hilt, leave the sheath alone. That might be kind of a bummer, especially if you get like a cool giant sword though. I mean, I don't know. Because you might want the sheath to get all, you know, big and like bulky. That's ugly, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, so I've cleaned this up. I've got my reference layer still. Now, if we wanted to keep, so here's one advantage to keeping the two layers, I guess, as I'm thinking about this. This backity back layer, we could drag this behind the reference. So that way it still looks like it's going to look in game. But what's interesting is, you see, the player covers up that sword, and you probably wouldn't think I would draw that whole sheath. But the reason that it's handy to do that is, let's suppose we wanted to actually provide alternate versions of the player. And maybe in one version, he doesn't have this cape, right? And so one version of the player sprite sheet might look like that on the back, right? It's like a lot smaller. And now you can see that sheath is poking through. So if our sprite sheets don't assume that they're being covered up, if we draw everything that's covered up, then it allows us to be a little bit more flexible with others. So if you're doing a paper doll system, this is quite important. You want to be able to make sure that that you're drawing things that would be covered up, right? So like, that's not what I wanted. I need to open up my player sprite here real quick. So, you know, looking at the original, let's say we broke this player down to where you could have pants and shirt and head that change. I've already kind of got it set up for the most part to be able to do that, right? And you can see behind the head, I've drawn what goes behind the head. So if for some reason his head got smaller, you'd still see stuff behind it. There wouldn't just be empty pixels. And likewise, you know, if I change the body or something, you know, I've still got legs drawn behind those parts. So I think I'm explaining what I want. Making sure that those layers have information or pixels or, you know, artwork there, even if you remove something that would cover it up. That's pretty important. So anyways, yeah, so let's go back to this sprite. I'm going to save the changes I've got here. And, well, I should undo that cape deleting. Okay. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with this sword here. And one reason why having these separate layers per object is really nice is because I'm just going to copy this whole sword. So let's say we want to add animations for this sword. I think I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer real quick. So just right click, new layer. And I'm going to come over here. I want to see how this looks in relation to that other sword. I'm going to flip it around. It's about the right size. So that's good. Okay. So, whoops, I didn't mean to delete it. Okay, so I've got this sword here. Yeah, for the sake of how this works, let's go ahead and assume that the sheath is going to stay the same. And otherwise, we're going to have multiple sprite sheets. Gosh dang it. You know what? I take it back, guys. Take it back. I think this sword and that sheath would be so ugly that I'm not going to do that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just leave this layer here as a reference and of what the new sword looks like. And I'll give it a name. And then one thing I'm going to do here is I'm probably going to lock that layer so I don't draw on it. Same with this reference layer. I'm going to just click the little lock. I don't know if you can see that icon very well, but that will mean that if I accidentally select it and try and draw, which I don't have the brush tool, then I'm going to get a little, you can see I can't draw on that layer. Well, it's not visible either, but yeah. So once it's visible, I can't draw on it. That'll prevent me from drawing on things I don't want to. So that's one way to help protect yourself. Now in this case, the sword is on the back layer. Okay. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to select this bit of the sword and Shift Control C, I think should copy merged. Yeah. So there's this copy merged. What that means is it copies just what you're seeing on the screen, right? So it doesn't matter what layer you have selected, it's going to copy everything. Okay. So then if I do that and then come down to my back layer and paste, there we go. Got a little hilt. And then I'm going to just rotate it. And I'm going to rotate it just like that and keep it nice. But before I move that over there, I'm going to just clean this up a little bit. So Control D to deselect. I'm going to clean off anything that shouldn't be showing, like that I don't know what you call that, like the little straps coming off. I don't need those, but, and then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to turn off my player. Yeah, let's just delete this hilt. I'm just going to go one step at a time with this. And one thing that's kind of weird, I think, about this hilt is I've got these little green, dark green pixels here. Technically, that's so that it has like a shadow against his cape. I'm going to delete those because, you know, what if we change the cape color? I don't want those in there. So I'm going to be doing some changes here. Okay, I'm going to bring this hilt over. Now, I think I should try and match that direction. And now if you select it and just go to the corners like this in Aseprite, you can rotate it, but you'll notice it doesn't always look very good. If you change this rotation to Rot Sprite, it might look a little bit better, but still not great, right? But that's okay. I'm just going to get it close. And this is just going to give me an approximation of where I want it, maybe. And then we'll just draw right over this again. Oh man, I'm really having a hard time getting this to look how I want. Yeah, CPT Tiki, if I could read. Been hoping for this for months. I'm glad I could provide it. Yeah, it's hard. It's been hard. I'm busier than I deserve to be, and so it's hard to always make time for something like this. Okay, so I'm just going to start drawing in, and I think, yeah, that's just a black. I'm going to kind of just clean this up a little bit. I'm going to just start by drawing black pixels. Okay. And one thing about pixel art that I think is nice for newcomers is that it's pretty forgiving. I'm going to go ahead and stop this animation because that's kind of disturbing when it's just ticking back and forth. So what I mean by it's forgiving is, you know, if you make a mistake, it's pretty easy to just push one pixel. But then the thing that's hard about Sprite artwork is that it's also kind of like, if you're not used to drawing and looking at forms and shapes, then it could feel kind of weird. Like, how am I supposed to get the shape I want, right? So one thing that I'm doing is just keeping the angle. So you can see that the sheath, I've got this stair step where it's like 1 pixel to the right and then 2 pixels up, right? So I just want to continue that same pattern on the hilt. And now that I've done that, it almost looks like the hilt needs to be bumped over a pixel or something. Okay. And then I'm just going to go back to my black brush and maybe finish that. Whoa, finish that off. So I just right clicked, but my eraser's huge, so it just took a big chunk out there. I'm just hitting to switch to the eraser, and I'll go back to the brush. Okay. So and then I'm going to come in here and just do the same thing with this pink kind of like highlight. And we've got a few different colors for the metal. So we've got like a dark gray, a light gray, and then I think it's just a white for that little highlight. And I'm going to take that little chunk off the corner. Makes it look rounded. And there we go. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, everybody is busy, Tiki. You know, it's funny you say that. Getting time to actually follow the tutorials has been rough, let alone do anything extra. Yeah, I hear you. It's taken me time to make them. Takes you time to follow them. And sometimes I look at the tutorial count and I know it doesn't do my channel too many favors with newcomers if they look at it and they like, oh, he's like 60 videos and they're almost all in the same tutorial series. That could be overwhelming, I think. I'm going to take this blade and I'm just going to do a Shift-Control-C to copy that. And then I'm going to paste it and just do another rotation. For this, I'm not actually going to move it into place and paint over it, but I just want a reference for about how long that should be. So there we go. I'm just going to drag it, you know, next to this. So the sheath needs to extend to about there. So if I take this and just keep drawing, do something like that. And there we go. And then I'll probably change the sheath color, but let me just finish some basic coloring there. Okay. And then I'm going to take my eraser tool and if you just hold Shift and click 2 spots, then it'll just draw a line. Okay, so here we go. There's only handle, no hilt really on this sword. Let's see. I think with the red, like a good gray, black, or purplishy kind of color might be good. So I'm going to select the color, and you can see I've switched to the gradient tool, the paint bucket tool. There's a gradient tool underneath it. But the paint bucket tool, shortcut is G. I mean, this will obviously fill, but if your pixels aren't touching, then it won't continue. But there's this little option up here when you have this selected, and it's called contiguous. It says fill contiguous areas color, and that's normally checked by default. If you uncheck that, then what it will do is any color you click on, it's going to find any other pixels of that color on this layer, and it's going to fill them. So that's pretty handy, especially with pixel art, because usually you're limiting your color palette. So I don't know if we want purple. I don't know if we want gray. I'm just going to play. Actually, I like that. That looks pretty good. So kind of a blue. I'm just playing with the default Aseprite palette that it comes with. Some people will be like real sticklers with palettes and pixel art. I'm not, although I try and maintain a single sprite. I try and, you know, stick to a limited palette for a single sprite, but I generally don't do that across the whole game. Although doing so can yield really beautiful results, because then you're ensured that you've got color harmony, and that's really hard to do. Especially for people who are new to art. And so if picking a color palette helps you do that, then by all means, go ahead and do that. Yeah, Tiki's still talking about the tutorials. A lot of tutorials are short. Yeah, I do it longer, and it's been popular with you guys, so I'm going to stick with it. And it's just how I think and how I work. So, okay, so there we go. We've got a sword with a sheath. Now, the one thing that I'm regretting right now is that these are on separate layers. So let me explain a little bit why I'm thinking this so that you guys understand what's going through my brain. So right now you can see that the sword's on the back, and then all we have to do to get it on the front is I'm just going to copy this layer and come over to the idle up and paste, and voila. See, we've got the sword there. And so I can just go through, and I'll just do this for the idle animations. Pretty easy, right? Because they're just, he's not moving, the sword's not moving. And looks like I've got some weird pixels on the player. I should clean those up so it doesn't distract, but yeah, there we go. We've swapped out the sword, right? But in the game, so if we're, this is a good example. Right here, we've got the one layer for the player, this reference layer, and then we've got a layer for the sword that's behind and one that's in front. And one easy way to do this in Aseprite is if that sword were on the same sprite, or not in Aseprite, but in Godot, if that sword were on the same sprite, then we could just change like the, you know, in Godot, there's a visibility option to display behind parent. And so if we had this sword and we just needed it to be behind on some frames, then we could just keyframe that property and just say like, yeah, for idle up, make this behind the parent, and for idle down, make it turn that off, right? And that would do it. Otherwise, we'd have to do other things like I wouldn't recommend using Z-index to adjust the layering of these, because that could cause unforeseen layer issues with your level or your enemies or whatnot. So display behind parent's good. Changing the order of the nodes in relation to the parent is another way you could do that, and you can do that through code. So those are some options. But, you know, so if getting back to that analogy, man, I hope I'm not losing you guys. We've got the player, we've got I would hate to have a sprite on top and a sprite on bottom to do this. But we're going to run into a situation later on with like this spin attack where the sword is both behind and in front. And that almost means two separate sprites if we're going to layer this. So that's why we might have to break it up. Yeah, let's see. Tiki's asking if I should mirror the shoulder when I go up and down. And yeah, I probably should, dang it. I haven't done that previously. I guess now's a good time to do it if we're going to break it up. So if when he's facing down, it's pointing that way, then here there's I think it's Shift H. Yeah, Shift H. We'll just take a layer and flip it. There we go. And of course, I've got that sword as part of these layers here. So just ignore that maybe. I could unlock it and at least erase the hilt. But I'm not going to draw. I'm not going to take the time to draw over all that right now. Okay. But later, if you clear up the player layers a little bit better, then it might be worth replacing these with a layer that doesn't have that sheath so that you don't get confused. But yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, Borger is asking, what art am I adding this stream, and for what will it be used? This is going to be used for the Action RPG tutorial series I'm working on. So we've already had this player and animated him. In the future, we're going to add a gear system. So there's equipment and sword and armor is where I'm going to start with that. And so I wanted to work on this on a stream so everybody could see what I'm going to be doing by the time we start building that. Okay. So now it's pretty straightforward for a lot of these. We can just take, you know, I'm just going to copy this frame where the sword's pointing here, and I'm going to go to the idle side, and I'm just going to paste it in place. There we go. And then same for the walk. I'm going to go ahead and copy this one. It's not flipped on the walk. So I'm just going to paste it, bump, bump. And then, except we lost the bobbing. So I'm just going to come here. I think on the first and the last frame, right? It needs to, oops. It needs to just come down one pixel. And so if I play this animation up here now, you can see the sword's bobbing with it. Yes, Borgar, you're working on an RPG. Awesome. Iggy Mo plays. Hi. Hey, everybody. Live stream for the win. Yeah. Let's see. So there we go. So you can see how this is going to be pretty slick. And then when I go to export this sprite sheet later, I'm just going to be exporting this. I'm not going to have that player on there. Right? I think that makes sense. So this just becomes a layer within our game later on. Am I a full-time indie dev, Bloodbath? No, I'm not. I started too late in life. And I'm a family man. I've got 4 kids and a wife at home. And I've got the golden golden handcuffs, I guess you could say, of having a career. And so I'm sticking with that. But kind of my goal with this channel is to eventually maybe at least supplement my income a little bit. But I would like to publish a game. I think I mentioned that earlier. I've got a couple games. I'll have to share my ideas with you guys later. Actually, this tutorial series stemmed from, I used to use the artwork that I was using for a little prototype for one of my game concepts. And so those faces that we have for the NPCs and everything, those all come from some work I did there. And I can show you guys that too. But so there we go. So I'm going to go through and just update this sword throughout. So now we need to put it up here. Needs to be what direction? See, now I'm getting confused because we're flipping it, right? Okay, so let's grab the idle up sword. I'm going to copy that frame. And then we just paste it in here. And I think I could just select all these and paste, except... No, that didn't work. Okay, just do one at a time then. I feel like there's a way to do that. I don't know why it's not working. Yeah, just nudge those up and down. And I like to keep my preview just always playing so that as I'm adjusting things, I can just check it real quick and then keep moving. And then down here, it's the same direction. So I'm just going to pop this in. Oops. And yeah. I'm curious, have I thought about doing game jams live or something? I have, and I actually asked about that kind of early in the life cycle of my channel or Discord channel server history. And I would like to do that. I don't know how I would have the time for that. At least not right now, but I definitely want to. And I'm thinking maybe fall time this year would be a time I might be able to do it. Shouldn't the sprite be more rotated? Good question. I'm not sure which direction you mean, Borgor. It could be, definitely. I think you're maybe thinking more of a top-down angle is what you might be referring to. Okay. It could be. I think I kind of like how it looks, but yeah, I don't know. Okay, so these animations over here, these are different, right? And it's the attack up animations where we've got the layers issue, where the sheath is behind and the sword's in front. So let's look at this. Let's do this one first, the attack down, because this is an easy one to do. I'm going to go ahead and turn... Well, I'm going to grab this sword. Do I have my sword reference still? Yeah, I do. So I'm just going to copy this layer. And I'm going to come to my attack down and just paste it. Fortunately, that's actually like just about perfect, right? I mean, if I just copy this and paste it here and then drag it over, wonk. There we go. Now I can just turn off that reference. Now I just need to kind of erase the hilt of the sword. And I'll go ahead and leave the little, the little straps hanging out there. Now, I'm not sure. I'm going to drag that over. There we go. Okay. Let's see. In the back, Borgor, in the back. Maybe? You thinking the sword should be rotated more in the back? Could be. I think I see what you're saying. Like maybe it should be like going across this way or something. Because of how this is animated, if we did that, it'd be pretty easy to update it, right? Because it's just bobbing up and down. I'm not sure I want to do that right now. Let's finish this attack animation, but I like the thought. I can't figure out where I want this sword positioned. I think I want it right there. So that means I need to add in one little bit of the hilt maybe. Borgor saying, yeah, okay, so I did understand that. Yeah. Okay, so here's the sword, this direction. Now, the thing about rotating pixel art is, as you saw earlier, it is a pain in the butt. So what I'm going to want to do, actually, is I'm going to want to take this sword, and I'm going to go ahead and let me copy this and paste it over here and turn this layer back on. I'm actually going to draw a version of this sword in each rotation so that we just have it. I'm going to have to unlock this layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the whole thing. Oh, oops. I don't want to copy everything. I just want to do a Control C. So I just copy the sword. There we go. And then if I rotate just the piece I copied, so it's horizontal. You see how crappy that looks? But at least I have a reference for the size, right? So let's just bring it over here, and I'll just stop moving it around. Control D to deselect that. And I'll turn off my reference layer. Now we can just clean up this sword. You know, this sword is thinner than the other one. This is like 3 pixels thick, this one. And the other thing is, this is like 2 pixels diagonal. Man, that's like rotated straight. There should be at least 2 pixels showing for the blade, maybe. You're going to have a really hard time getting consistent sizes with pixel art when you rotate them. That's one of the biggest pains of it. But, you know, you do what you can. I'm just going to take this dark gray and kind of fill it all in like that. And then I think it should have, yeah, an edge kind of like that, maybe. To rotate, you can just hit Control T and that'll rotate the whole layer. You can see it's got everything. And then Control T is a shortcut for like the free transform or the transform. So I think that's under Edit. Well, there is a rotate. That'll just rotate it by 180 or 90 degrees. But yeah, transform right here, Control T. And you can also do that if you select, like if I just select a part with the marquee tool, M is the short. I use a lot of shortcuts, guys. So if I use the marquee tool to select just this part and then hit Control, or not hit Control T, I don't need to hit Control T if I selected it. Then you can see at the corner, if you position your cursor just right, you'll get that little thing. And you can hold Shift to constrain it to 45 degree, or looks like it's doing, I don't know, right? It constrains it to certain, what degrees are those? That's 45. What's in between? 22 and a half? I don't know. So yeah, that's how I rotate those. And yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how I want this blade to look from the side, because make my eraser 1 pixel. One thing I like about this version of it is it kind of has a point, but it's not like slightly curved looking because of the way I drew those pixels. That's a little bit harder to do, maybe. I don't know if I need to do this. Yeah, that looks okay. Will I make shaders for my RPG? That's a great question. I have a really fun shader that's like a CRT monitor shader, and I just pulled the code from some people that I found on, you know, there's like a GitHub, or not a GitHub, but one of the Godot, they've got a page for shaders. Anyways, there's a really nice CRT monitor effect kind of a shader, and I've kind of put that in. In fact, you know, if you look at my Patreon thank you screen, you know, that's rendered with that CRT shader. I'll show you how to do some of those. I don't know how, I'm not a huge expert with shaders. I use them just from time to time, and I usually use shaders that I've either just found or maybe modified slightly, but I maybe only written one shader from scratch, and they're not always very production quality when I do it myself from scratch. I went ahead and kind of animated this little, or made this ribbon kind of coming out that way, because I think it should look like that when it's being swung. There we go. So I've got a sword that's going horizontal now. I think that looks pretty good. But what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just bring this layer. And if you, in Aseprite, if you select a layer and then you click on like the little border of that layer, you can actually just drag it and drop it. So now it's on the next layer here. So we've got a sword that points down. Fortunately for us, the blade pointing down is really easy, because all we have to do is paste one of those, copy paste, and then just rotate it down, right? We're not going to get any distortion doing that. Okay. So there we go. We've got a couple versions of the sword, and these will handle a lot of the positions that we need the sword in. So we can just kind of keep this layer handy. And I'm going to drag this over here so it's easier to select. Like that. Okay, so where did we leave off on this animation? Sword at an angle. Sword's kind of horizontal here. So let me just come and I'm going to select that sword. Make sure you've got the right layer selected, and then hit Control C to copy it. And then I'll just come back to the tippity top layer. And I'm actually going to delete this layer. Then I'll just paste it. Oh, dang it. Apparently I mess up with copying in Aseprite all the time. I'll just go ahead and erase these other ones though real quick. But that's the sword I want, right? That horizontal sword. Yeah, something like that. Got some pixels floating around from the other. There we go. You know, one thing that these animations really could use, and I'll do that in a second, is we could use some smearing. Because it looks okay, but this animation's kind of lame. Yeah, Borgard, these will be weapons that you can find or purchase. We'll eventually build a little shop system. For the tutorial where we add this weapon, it'll probably just be like in a treasure chest or something like that. Let's see. So once we've got these sword, oh, I didn't do this sword. Hold on, let's do this one. Select that, Control C to copy, and then paste. Hey, there we go. That time I got just the sword. I don't know what I do wrong. I was saying this earlier. I don't know what I do wrong with Aseprite, but when I copy, half the time I'm copying like, I don't know, all sorts of stuff that I don't want. The wrong layers or whatever. Okay. Yeah, slash effect. I think we have a slash effect that we play in the game, and so that sufficed for me for a while. And in fact, maybe we should open the game. I'll go ahead and open this for. Oh boy, I think I clicked on Godot. There it goes. We have a slash effect that we overlay with the weapons. And now that we're separating the weapons out, you could make that a part of the weapon, but if I opened that twice, didn't I? I don't know which one I should open. This is the one I work on before I make a video. Let's open the actual version here of the RPG series. In addition to a slash, there's a concept in animation known as smearing, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit because it can help make the motion feel smoother than it actually is. You know, like our attack animation is 3 frames. But let's go ahead and run this scene real quick. Yeah, so we've got a slash that flies out from the sword. And that's just a separate sprite sheet that I'm just playing back. But what I'd like to do is come back here to Aseprite. So I think I'd like to try a smear. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this layer here so that I can keep it in case I don't like what I do. And what a smear would do is, so like this middle frame is the best candidate for a smear probably, because at the start of the frame, you've got him holding the sword up here. And then this frame, you know, it would be nice to see that the sword is kind of moved between those frames. And so what a smear would look like is, I'm on the wrong layer. If I were to grab this sword, instead of having it be straight, right? And let me turn on the onion skin feature so you can kind of see where the previous sword was. So a smear is going to kind of almost show the shape of this sword as if it was kind of almost blurred, right? So this might be a good kind of this is kind of rough, but that's a smear, right? So I just need to come in here. I think I need to add some more highlights to some of those sword frames, but so you can see that this sword is kind of like stretched, and that can kind of help add to the motion of the animation, even though it's like implied motion as opposed to actual motion. Okay. And if we wanted to, I mean, this smear could even include I guess the final shape of the sword of this frame is more like this, right? So maybe what we should do with the smear is have it smear to that position. Schmear. It's a weird word. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that, right? So that kind of helps give a little bit more implied motion there. yeah, I'm getting questions if again from Borger if I'm going to make multiplayer. I don't plan to on this series do multiplayer. Yeah. Yeah, Borger, it's drawing a weird stretch frame to make it look like it has movement. Yeah. And you're right. I could stretch it more. I mean, I don't know if you had to. It's kind of the eye of the beholder, right? But I think if I were to smear this last frame, I might potentially smear this one the most. And do something kind of like that almost. I don't know. Then I just need to get some highlights in here. And all of this really could be fine-tuned, but do you see how that kind of gives more implied kind of motion than, like, let's try without the smear and with the smear. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that for now. I think otherwise I could sit and nitpick this for hours, and I might come back and do that. But for now, I'm going to just call that good, I think, and move on to the next part that needs animated. Once I once I fiddle with these. But what I was saying is, you know, for some of these frames that only play for a fraction of a second, having these extra colors might not be too necessary. And by the way, I'm just navigating between frames using the left and right arrow keys. Left and right just changes frame for you. So that's a nice handy little shortcut in Aseprite. But yeah, having some of this highlight color in here might be nice. Okay. There we go. And then if I go back to this frame, oh, not paint bucket. I just want the brush. But yeah. Schmear, says James. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to stick with that. And actually, these are going to probably become templates for other swipes. One thing I want to do too, though, I'm going to get a little bit nitpicky here. You know, the first frame's okay with the little straps dangling here, but like, I feel like if we're going to have these straps be part of this sprite, they need to probably be kind of exaggerated here as well. So I need to eyedrop this red color. But I know a lot of you guys, I recognize a lot of you guys for from my videos and Discord. I'm curious if anybody's working on anything cool lately. Yeah, the comment is, shouldn't the tassel be on the other side? I don't know where to put it. I think sometimes you just have to go with what feels good, even if it's not like super accurate. And that's one thing I've always loved about pixel art is sometimes you just kind of do weird, goofy things. I don't know. Like maybe we make this tassel look super long all of a sudden. For no reason at all, right? And you can hate it, that's okay. But I'm just kind of playing around. So Iggy Mo's saying, for blade in motion, isn't the ribbon / tassel on the wrong side? It would technically be trailing the schmear since it's a soft material. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think this is kind of an attempt to do something like that, but I'm just having a little bit of fun with it right now too. So here though, this definitely needs to change over here too. I mean, so I think this is going to be sticking out this way. And you know, the reality of this frame is if it gives any of that information, then that's good because it's only visible for such a short amount of time that I wouldn't spend hours and hours. And, you know, when it comes to game development too, I get stuck in between two modes where I'm trying to be efficient and not dawdle on the art so that I can make sure that the game makes sense because, you know, what the worst thing you could do is spend 40 hours on art and then go spend 2 hours building it and go, oh, oops, the art's wrong. You know, So it's good to make sure you kind of prototype something out before you really get into the details with the art. Although with this game, I could say we've kind of done that. So yeah, I don't know if this is the best schmears for the tassels, but we'll leave it as is. So then we've got an attack up, right? I'm going to go ahead and maybe just, we should be able to just copy these for the most part. So like if I come here and you can see I'm adding extra layers. It's getting messy. So for this one, the sword is on the back. So I'm going to just paste it. Well, this is interesting. It starts, let me look at this animation. Yeah, that's fine. Technically, he's like swinging the wrong way, but whatever. Yeah. Skepsis says, I want to do something similar to your AARPG. I just always get hyper-focused on making art. And you know, if you're really good at art and you've got some buddies that are good at other parts of game development, or you want to form a team, then maybe you can just hyper-focus on the art. And even though I'm doing all this solo, there are huge benefits to a team. And so don't feel like you have to do it solo. You know, maybe keep an eye out for a team. And Borgers tried to make multiplayer for your game, but making everyone send data to the host and networking was hard. I wonder if you were using, there are some built-in multiplayer communication nodes in Godot. I wonder if you were using those. The last time I experimented with multiplayer, I was working in Unity, actually. So I haven't worked with Godot's tools yet. Yeah. Yeah, low effort, placeholder heart, skepsis. That's hard. It's hard if you're an artist, it's hard to do that, but it makes more sense in the long run. And James saying he's not good at art, far better at programming. You know, speaking of game jams, someone asked about game jams earlier. It's funny, I've done 3 fairly serious game jams. And technically 4, but one of them I just stepped in to help them do some pixel art last minute. I wasn't really involved in the game, so I don't usually consider that one. But the one that I did 2 on my own, and I spent a lot of time on art on those, and they're the best looking game jam entries I've had. The other one that I spent a lot of time with the team, I did some pixel art, but I shared the load with a lot of people on that. And I spent a lot of time programming, and I was really unhappy with the art, but the game itself was pretty awesome. So that's good. Do I make money from making games and selling it, or paid course? I'm pretty new to YouTube Beats, and so I make some money here, and I've got Patreon supporters. So that's where I'm making money right now. I haven't been selling any games yet. My real world profession is, my title at work is a senior web designer, and I do front end development. I've worked in software and marketing and things like that. Most recently in software and web development though. So what's the best RPG level chat? I don't know what that means, Borgor. RPG level chat. Maybe clarify what you mean there. So anyways, yeah, let's get this attack going. I'm just rambling now. I think what I was going to do is paste this sword in here, kind of get it started. And then we've got the horizontal version of the blade right there, which is the one that's smeared. Okay, let's paste this in here. Except this needs to shift or flip. I'm going to do a shift V, that'll flip it vertically. Okay, so that needs to kind of come up here. I don't know where, somewhere around there. I probably should have kept that other one before I removed it, and then yeah, let's get this last blade, paste it, so it'll flip vertically again. Okay, looks all right. If his cape weren't here, I think we'd see his hand. I feel like it could almost be up further, you know, but there we go. 2 attack animations done. And then if we turn off the reference layer, that's the sprite sheet we'd be exporting, right? What's the best game level in an RPG? Oh, he's asking the chat. Holy cow. Best game level in an RPG. I don't know, you guys have favorite RPGs? First console was Sega Genesis for me, and I loved Phantasy Star 3 and Phantasy Star 4, and I loved the Shining Force games. Man, I love those Shining Force games. I need to clean this up. I've got multiple layers here. So I think what I need to do is just take... I can just merge this down, it looks like. Yeah, let me just go ahead and do that. I might need to clean up a frame or two, but yeah, there we go. Like right here, I got some extra ribbons. Earthbound, yeah. If you're in the Discord server for Michael Games, which I didn't think to put that in the description for this video. You can find it on others. It'll be, I'll put it on later. But Aya, who I was in this stream earlier, she's doing like a really accurate recreation of Earthbound. It's looking really awesome. How long did it take me to become a software dev? Too long. I mostly, you know, for years I did. In fact, early in my career, I did a lot of advertising, graphic design, branding, things like that. Opening of Planescape Torment and Shadowrun on the SNES. Waking up in the morgue seems to resonate with you. Thanks, James. Yeah, I haven't played Shadowrun on the SNES. I played the Genesis version. That's kind of a weird, wacky game, but it had a really cool vibe too. Shadowrun, man, what a throwback. You know, when you talk about old nostalgic games, you start to remember so many. I don't know how old people are. You're probably starting to guess my age by what I'm talking about, but I think my favorite thing about the Shining Force series on the Genesis is that, you know, if you guys haven't played them, they're a strategy RPG, so kind of like I don't know, Fire Emblem maybe, but different style. Let me pull up a screenshot. Kind of a comic book style to like the attack animations that pop up, if I can find one of these. But what was really cool is a lot of strategy RPGs, or probably the majority of them, between the battle sequences, you're just having maybe some dialogue at most, but yeah, the Shining Force games, you could actually wander around the world and talk to people, and there were characters that you could recruit on your team that, you know, if you just kind of main path the game, you'd totally miss them. But yeah, let me drag this over here. This game, I love this game. There we go. You're walking around the world, you got your units, and then when you fight, here's a good example. It like shows your character and they swing their sword. I love that game. And it has the best box art from the 90s and stuff. This is so amazing. The version in Japan probably looked totally different. For Shining Force 2. But I love the box art. They give it to some like D&D high fantasy artist over here, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're like a blonde-haired dude with a cape and a sword. Okay, I can do that. And then it turns out it's like an anime style game. Always cracks me up. Oh, people are going to start trying to figure out how old I am. Okay. If I stop chatting, we can actually finish these animations too. So let's go ahead and grab this sword here. Get the next. Oh, see, now this attack is different because the first frame is vertically aligned. You know? So do I have those still? I do. Right here. I'm going to drag these reference. Is that not the one? This one. There we go. There's my reference frame. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? Well, I'm not going to. You can, what you can do is you can select multiple frames, and then if you like select them all, you can make it just share one frame. But I'd have to do that for the whole set, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so where was I? Attack side. I'm going to just drag this over so I can pick my swords. James Nye is 45. Yeah, I'm 40. I'll be 42 next week. I'm getting old. So you young people don't get old. It sucks. You just get more tired. I kind of need this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to keep doing this back and forth. I want to paste this blade on this new layer so I can position it. What on earth am I doing? Got swords everywhere. Okay. Let me fix this. Got to erase this sword. And then come up here. Rotate this guy. Oh. Like so. That's about right. And then if I delete this sword, turn on my reference layer, looks pretty good. Iggy Mo remembers the original Pac-Man release on the Atari 2600. Yeah, we actually had an Atari 2600 too when I was little, but I guess we had like, what did we have on there? Like there was a battle game where you had the tanks and the planes and different modes you could play. And there was a game, I'm thinking of a Commodore 64 game. Realm of Impossibility. I wonder if anybody's played that. Skepsis says he'll be old when he's dead and can't age anymore. Yeah, that's a good attitude to have. Combat. Is that the name of the game? Yeah. Combat. Just a game called Combat. Back before games had to be really creative, right? I mean, because there was nothing like it. That's hilarious. But yeah, Realm of Impossibility is like this hilarious Commodore game that I just absolutely love. I always thought it was like an Indiana Jones game because of the cover box art on it. Do I plan to create a tutorial series on making character sprites, props, tile sets, and other pixel art assets in Aseprite? Yeah, well, this is my first. This isn't a tutorial series per se, but this is the first time I've actually shared how I work on my pixel art. So I don't know if I'll make a series. I probably will. Ricochet Tanks was the best. Yeah, a stream. Yeah, Umbra. Hey, welcome. It's going great. You haven't missed too much. You know, I don't know. You should be able to rewind right on the YouTube stream. If not, I'm going to keep this. Up. We're just working on sprites for the AARPG series. We're going to start adding an equipment system, and I want to have. I'm tackling this. I'm doing it. I'm doing more than I should because it's going to get really complicated and really awesome. Mule. I don't know if I've played Mule. Skepsis. So there's a website for that. That's fun. Yeah, there's a couple good old. There was a Michael Crichton written game on the Commodore 64. It was why am I drawing a blank? It was like called Amazon or something. And it was one of those text adventures. Well, I don't know. I loved that one. I don't know if it was Amazon, but what was it called? Yeah, it was called Amazon. You're like, yeah. Lots of fun old games. Okay, let's do this. We got to get this sucker done. Okay, so I've got to get my different angles of my sword in there, and then we can draw the schmears. Since these ones are a different type of schmear than the... There we go. Boom. I'll just paste that in there. I'll come back and delete the hilts and stuff. So we get this set up. So I'll just copy that sword. And delete this. So, I mean, I've got quite a few people following along that are not super young. Zork. Yeah, Zork series was good. What are you talking about, guys? I'm just 15 and... Sorry, Bloodbath. Just a bunch of old fogey games. I like to show these things to my kids. So this is Amazon, and this was like mind blowing to me. You are in NSRT at 10 p.m. awaiting a satellite communication from the Amazon. So good. Yeah, you are doing a good job of distracting me. Iggy Mo. Okay. Got all these swords in place. Let's see. What's interesting is, I got to turn that reference layer off. You know, this layer, see, this is a weird layer because it's kind of on top of most of the player, but it's underneath his hand. And so when we're, you know, going back to the original concept from the beginning of this video, what I'm trying to prep this art for is it's going to be a single layer for the weapon. So what I've done here, and I kind of did this while I was joking around, I did erase out where the hand would fit. So the implications of that are that if we're using this in the game, and let's say we are going to have introduced different versions of the character sprite, we have to keep his hand shape the same on this frame, or we're going to have issues with the art. Which is fine, I think, for the most part, you know, because I think you could be like, yeah, he's either got gloves or something, would just change the color of that, and that's fine. Just make sure that you don't have a bigger or a smaller hand. Otherwise, you know, if you make the hand smaller, then you're going to end up with like empty pixels, and that can look really gross. And if you make the hand bigger, then the sword's going to kind of like cut into the hand, and that might look okay in some circumstances, but pretty gross in others. So yeah, just be careful there. Jean-Marc Straven is back. Welcome back. Okay. What the heck am I doing, guys? I got to do schmears, and I got to erase. So I was just talking about the handles. This is kind of, I don't love erasing sections for the pixel art below to show through, but I think it's a necessary evil to get the best result for this. And one more. And for this one, I'm probably just gonna, yeah, I'm not even gonna draw the back of the hilt. I don't think we need to. Actually, I take that back. It looked kind of good, doesn't it? And then, you know, you're gonna see when I start, I'm gonna have to clean that up a little bit, but when I, like if I turn off my reference layer, it's looking a little wonky there, right? I'm gonna have to kind of be careful about what pixels I leave behind. Have I thought about putting body parts and capes on a different layer? Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I won't do that for the AARPG series. What we're going to do is kind of like the baby step towards doing that. I've done that in a project before. And I think the most I did was about 3 layers for like a player. If you look at something like Stardew Valley, you know, Cozy Games in that vein, they're going to have a layer for legs, feet, body, head, hat, I don't know, stuff like that. Yeah, Bloodbath, this stream, it'll stay live on YouTube. So even though but to further answer that question, Bloodbath, I do in my long list of super awesome ideas for videos, I do want to do a video. It would probably be a short series, several videos about building kind of a comprehensive paper doll system, so that if you have a game like Stardew Valley, a cozy game, and you want to be able to change the shirt independently from the pants and things like that, I would like to look at doing a system like that. It can get complicated, but you know, if you're careful, it can also be pretty manageable. And there's some nice tricks that we'll use in the AARPG series with these weapons, where all you have to do is drop in a sprite, and we'll just, because we're making these frames match up with the player, we don't have to animate these new sprites that we're going to bring in very much, because for the most part, we'll just have them match the frame of the player sprite, and it'll be pretty easy to implement on that front as far as the animations. Let's see. So here we go. I keep talking about the schmear. Let's do the schmear. This is what we need to do now. I'm going to grab this sword. This is actually an easier one to schmear, I think. You notice how that line was thick and gross? I'm going to undo that. There's actually a pixel perfect option here. And this is what this will do is as you draw, it'll try and keep that nice like 1 pixel per segment. Like it won't make these hard corners where you have like an L shaped, right? If you're drawing a diagonal line, if you have this off, you're almost always going to get those. Okay, but you turn pixel perfect on and it'll stay nice and smooth. Obviously you still have to figure out how to draw a smooth line. And by the way, I'm just drawing with a mouse. You could use a tablet, and I've drawn a lot on a tablet. Nowadays, if I'm drawing with a tablet, I have an aging iPad that I prefer to draw on. There we go. There's our schmear. Now we just need to get some color in there. And we'll be good to go. I don't know. I wonder if the music is even audible. I did some test recordings, but then, once you're live, it's just kind of like, what the heck? Is this working? I hope it's working all right. Snarlsberg, this is Aseprite. It is amazing for pixel art. It's not free, technically. It's quite inexpensive. They do have, I believe you can get some versions of it from, I think they have a public GitHub repo, and you can, so if you know how to build software yourself, you could just download that and make a build of it, and then it's free. There's also somebody had a project that's like a free Aseprite, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's many versions behind. Not nearly as good, but Aseprite is worth it. It's like $15 or something. It's totally worth the money. So yeah, I mean, even if you're kind of poor, save up a little bit because it's a one-time fee. Yeah, James says that's why you find drawing an Aseprite to feel wonky. Are you drawn with a tablet? I wonder. Is that what you mean by that? But yeah, I draw with a mouse because to me, pixel art is, when it's pixel perfect, a mouse is easier than a stylus, in my opinion. So that's how I would recommend working in Aseprite, which is counterintuitive. I think people would be like, I've got to start making art. I've got to get myself like a tablet, and I've got to, yada, yada, yada. But no, a mouse is great for pixel art. And now one thing I'm doing a lot is I'm just holding Alt. You see that switches to this eyedropper tool, so that I can just quickly pick a color, and I'll go back. I got to get my light color, bring that over here. I'm not going to draw that yet, but I'll put it in there so I have a reference to it. But when you're doing like this shine on this sword and stuff, if you try and do it like accurate, then like you're wasting your time. Just have fun with it. James Nice saying $20 for Aseprite. Yeah, that might be what it is. And Skepsis is saying that you do work with a drawing tablet when doing art, but only a mouse when doing pixel work. Yeah, same here. Yeah. Oh yeah, Seven Sim mentioned that it's Libre Sprite. That's the free one. And actually, if you want to just try it out, if you don't want to drop the money on Aseprite yet, and you want to try Libre Sprite, I think it works. I mean, it is based off an early build of Aseprite, so. Yeah, if you're doing with a tablet, James is saying that sometimes it doesn't fill in like you expect it to. Yeah. Hey, look at that. Like, how far are we into this stream? I don't even know. I don't even know where to look for that. Somewhere. So I think we're an hour and 20 minutes in. Holy crap. We haven't done very much. But what's nice is this new attack. That looks better than our old attack, at least, right? And I'm not trying to publish this game as much as make it a resource for the community out there. So this is nice that we're going to upgrade the weapon. And again, once we export this sprite sheet, this is what it's going to look like. Each frame is just going to have a floating sword. You could almost just take this and like add the hilt back in and use it to make a floating sword enemy. That'd be fun. Skepsis is seeing 81 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Sounds about right. Okay. I'm curious if you guys want me to show you anything in Aseprite in particular, because I think I've kind of shown more or less what this is all about. I'm happy to keep working and chatting for a little bit. We're not going to bring this into the game today. I wish I'd had time for that. I would have time for that, but you know, I might be able to go for another hour even, but James is saying that he only has an iPad with a pencil to draw with. But you haven't found a good program like Aseprite on the iPad. Yeah, no, I've tried a couple pixel art programs on the iPad myself. I don't even remember their names. I'm unimpressed. I really like the idea of doing pixel art on the go. I've never been happy with it, but I love Procreate. Not good for pixel art though, but great for drawing. If you can or want, you can compile Aseprite from source. Yeah, you're right, 7 Sim. I was kind of mentioning that a little bit earlier. I've never done it myself. Probably just need to install Visual Studio, and you can get like the community version for free and get the project and compile it. So if you know what you're doing, that shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, so Tiki, this new artwork that I'm doing is for an upcoming episode. So as we watch him spin. So I'm going to be adding this gear system soon. I don't know. Most of these are going to be pretty much just copy and paste, you know, except for this one. That one's going to take a little bit extra work. But yeah, that's what this is for. I'm going to be creating, we're going to add, I'll go back for those of you who missed the beginning of the stream, and even if you rewatch it, we're going to be adding this stuff. And in fact, let me go ahead and close that. So if I go to my AARPG playground, you guys can get a little glimpse into what I'm working on. I haven't been working on this equipment system very long. Truth be told, the time I've had this week, I've spent probably 50% of it working on something unrelated to anything I've put up on my YouTube channel. How would I draw another sword, or when I want to add a new sword, for example, a rare sword? Okay, we'll do that. We'll look at that, Weeboo, and yeah, do something from scratch. How do we design a sprite that is made to be modulated in Godot, black and white colors only? Oh, all great questions. Let's see if we can address those. Real quick, I'll just show you, like, I've got this pause menu. This is pretty rudimentary, but I'm going to have armor, weapon, amulet, and ring slots, you know, so we'll be able to like equip items, and you can see I increased the size of the inventory. But you're going to be able to equip items, and then these will affect your stats. I'm not sure what we're going to do with the amulet and ring yet. The sword and the armor are pretty obvious. These ones are fun, but I think they're going to have to come in the form of like new abilities, maybe. I don't know. So yeah, we can do something from scratch today, and something that we modulate. Throw out an idea of what you think that might be. Otherwise, I'll just come up with something, and then while you guys are thinking of ideas of something new that we could create, it doesn't have to be related to the AARPG series, but if it is, then maybe we'll use it in the future. I'm going to talk about Weeboo Slayer's question. So he's asking, like, how would I do a new sword? And part of what we're doing here with this file I've been working on slowly is we're setting up a template for being able to make weapons, right? Because eventually what we'll do is I'll go ahead and pretend like this one is complete. Obviously, we've only got the sword up to the attack layers, okay? But when I was done, I would just come in here and go to export as a sprite sheet. And if you're unfamiliar with this exporting in Aseprite, it's pretty handy and pretty powerful. It'll show you what that sprite sheet's going to look like up here, and you can actually click and drag around it, which is pretty nice. So you can see we've got the old sword in the majority of the frames. But if we get back to the beginning, we've got the new sword, okay? And the reason we're exporting just the sword alone, again, is it's going to be a paper doll-like implementation where we have a separate sprite just for the weapon. You need to configure this. It's not wise to have super wide sprite sheet like this, and I think it's good. You know, this sprite, if I close this real quick, if I look at the properties on it, each frame is 64 pixels by 64 pixels. And I would always recommend, for those of you who might be more familiar with with image processing and video game development, there's a concept of numbers that are power of two, power of two numbers. 64 is one of those. And so what we would want to do is keep our sprite sheet to a power of two, because GPUs and CPUs handle images at a power of two scale more efficiently than ones that are not. And so what that would mean is a power of two number, like we've got, if you go 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, these are power of 2. 128, 256. You've heard of these numbers, right? 512, 1024, 2048. And then we'll get up to 4K resolution, 4096. So if you have a 4K texture, if you hear an artist talking about a 4K texture, that would be pretty rare in pixel art. But if you're making like a 3D game and you've got, the textures for your player characters, they're going to be 4K usually nowadays. So what you could do is just pick one of those. And I usually go with 1024 as my base size. And I divide it by the size of my frame, which is 64. And that's 16. So what that means is when I go and export this, I know I'm getting into the weeds about something weird. I hope this is useful to you guys. So when I go and export this, file, export, sprite sheet, or Control-E. So then when you come in here, you can configure it so that it'll be 1024. And the way we do that is we'll say by columns, and then see this constraint, we can say, or not by columns, by rows. And then under the constraint, you could say fixed width, and you could type in 1024. Or you could say fixed number of columns, which is what I was calculating for, and say 16. And so then you can see that this gives us this nice sprite sheet. It's going to be 1024 pixels wide. And if you wanted to, you could try and make it so that it's 512 tall or something. But this is going to be a good, nice, efficient sprite sheet. And so this is how I would do it. And I'm going to I'll go ahead and export this right now. So preview, open sprite sheet, just make sure you have output file checked. I don't know why that's not checked by default for me, because I feel like it used to be, but you can see here's the name. And if I look at this, it's going to export it to my working folder. That's fine. So I'll go ahead and export this. Okay. So I haven't gotten to your question yet, and I'm getting more, but what were you saying, Slayer? So if you wanted to make a new sword from scratch, once you've got this file complete, then you can just come in here. You don't even need the character reference anymore if you don't want, although it's there to help if you need it, if you want it. But you just come in here and you could take your new sword, and I would recommend just picking a frame and, drawing it. Where did I go with that? Oh, I don't have it turned on. Draw your sword out, and then just start laying it out on all these layers. And then when you're done, you export it, and then you can bring it into the game. So that's like a super high level overview of what I would do, right? But yeah, so if you wanted a thick sword, it would just be as simple as saying, okay, well, the blade's going to start there. Or, if you're looking at the hilt, okay, this is where the hilt is. This is where it sits on his back. Maybe it's going to be longer. You got to be careful though. Like this sword is about as long as I can fit into some of the frames for this animation. Like if we go to the side animation, you can get a little bit longer, not too much longer. So be careful about that. You have constraints to the size of your sprite sheet. Those can be overcome if you want to nudge this over. And then when you bring it in, you could adjust the offset or position of the sprite a little bit. But I would recommend staying away from that if at all possible, because that's just a headache in my opinion. But yeah. Okay, let's see. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Slayer. An episode on tile set creation? Yeah. Ooh, a spoiler. Yeah, we got some spoilers about what we're working on. So I showed how I export this sprite, and so the question Jean-Marc had, do you export this sprite? Yeah, and it's one PNG. You can export them separate. I'm not sure why you would want to do that. There are circumstances where you might. I would say especially if you have higher resolution, would be one scenario I could think of where you might want them separate. It's still going to be a large amount of memory to hold all those files if they're high resolution, but if you're getting one image that's above 4K, then you might, or 8K, I don't know, 8K might be a good max nowadays, but you got to be careful. You don't want You don't want a texture that's like 10 gigabytes. Every texture in the game is on one atlas, which you could do, but then if it's huge, right, you got to load it. And that's going to sit in your RAM or your VRAM. Let's see. Bloodbath. Yeah, this is... Did I miss something? Are you going to do something in project? I'm not going to do something in project today. You just saw me. I was just kind of showing what we're doing. Yeah, 4K sprite sheet with 8x8 tiles. That would be hilarious. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Oh, it looks like James Nye was manually making sprite sheets before. Yeah, man, you don't need to do that. Sometimes I do. Like, you see this file? This is like a manual sprite sheet. However, if you'll notice, I have different frames, right? So I have my first frame, and I did tile 4 little icons in one frame because I knew I needed them to be small like this, fit within this 16 by 16 pixel box. But then the other artwork is using the whole thing. And so like this file, I did export this. And if I go back to that, if I go back to this example here in Godot, you can see I've used those icons right here. And I don't know the best way to show this. Like I just used a texture atlas here. So you can see there's the whole texture, which is really small, but I was going to open this edit region. There we go. So I exported that as a sprite sheet and then just pick and use the pieces I need for different elements. Yeah. Okay. So the questions are making something from scratch and something that is designed to modulate. Now, I like that question about modulating. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, in Godot, modulating, this is a great example. Excuse me. That's one thing about live streams. I can't cut out all the awkwardness, but so like this icon here, if I wanted to change the color in Godot, I could, and I just go down to visibility, and there are 2 modulate settings. There's a modulate and a self-modulate. They do essentially the same thing. The difference is modulate will color the node and all children nodes, and self-modulate will color the node, but it will not color children nodes. Okay, so a good example of this is like if I look at this HBox container, if I modulate this to red, you can see it gives a red tint to everything. Okay, if I self-modulate this, nothing's going to happen because this HBox container has no visible element to modulate, but it didn't color the children, right? You saw how that did not affect the children. So that's a handy differentiation to make if you've got multiple sprites together and they're nested underneath a sprite or a node. Now you know you can modulate them individually if you need to. But what happens with modulate is you'll notice when it's white and you pick a color, it looks like it just changes your sprite to whatever color you pick, right? But there's a caveat. It's only changing white to the color you pick, and obviously the black is still black. So if we look at like this this inventory icon that's got this green gem in here, and I go modulate this. Now when I modulate this, you see it's not making the gem red. I mean, it looks red if I drag it all the way to red, but if I go kind of in the middle, you can tell that it's actually like adding red to the color, right? Let's see what the term is they use on the tooltip for this. The color applied to the canvas item. Hope you might be hearing some coughing and some barking. This property does affect child, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it just applies a color. There's probably some technical documentation that talks about the kind of method they use to apply this color, but it's not just making it that color, right? It's taking a color and it's adding it to it. And essentially it has the effect of darkening. So if we pick, you know, like this red or this blue, it's like, it's getting dark, right? Because there was already a dark green and it's getting darker. And if you pick a bright color like this light blue, it's not so dark, but that's because this blue has a very high value, okay? So this whole explanation, like, you know, black just makes it black. This whole explanation is to kind of illustrate a little bit how the modulate works. So if we're over in Aseprite, these are obvious, right? I've got these swords and shields and I want to modulate them. Black is going to be black no matter how you modulate it. And white is going to take on the new color that you've modulated. Let me stop this animation. So we can use this as an example. Let me add a layer or use this effect layer. If we wanted to have some like basic shading, what I would recommend, there's two ways you could approach this, but you could just use gray and assume, okay, this is going to pick up whatever color I'm using, or you could use a tinted color. So, you know, if you're new to art, you might actually want, like for your shadows, you might actually want to pick like a gray blue color for your shadows. Okay. And we'll go ahead and you kind of want like a 50% gray for like a middle, if we're just doing a couple colors here. So I'm going to just add some basic shading to this sword. Let's say I want it to look like that. Like, oh, it's kind of shaded. And then you could pick a lighter gray where it's not quite as shaded. And it's still that blue. It's still this bluish tint, right? But it still kind of looks black and white just with a blue tint. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then let's do the same thing to this armor real quick. And then we'll export this and we'll bring it over to the game in Godot and have a peek at what it does. Yeah, James and I asked if I used a region. I think I answered that question already, hopefully. If not, let me know. It's kind of awkward because unfortunately my chat's like quite a bit behind. And Borgor asked how I made custom icons in a tab container. Do I plan on making a tutorial for Godot and maybe some tips and tricks because each person has its own style in operating the software? Yeah, I should do that, Beats. I'm getting all blurry. I should do that because I have a lot of personal preferences and I do things, I know I do some things very differently than others. Okay, I'm just gonna, let's get this done real quick and then we'll bring it in. And I'll show you guys how this is how I would probably set something up to modulate, is I would treat it as black and white. But there is an issue with modulate, and I don't think modulate is a good solution for recoloring artwork in most cases. That's my honest opinion. And in that case, a shader might be better suited. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this and let me export the sprite sheet. So it's called gear.png. I need to open that up. Let's see. Let me get some Explorer windows. I'm on a different screen. Give me just a second, guys. Yeah, ring and amulets give stats instead of abilities. Yeah, you definitely could. Move speed, that's a fun idea. Yeah. Extra attack damage, I don't mind that one. That's probably, you should have a ring that does that in a game like we're making probably. But most of them would probably give, I think like each ring would give a different benefit, right? So if you're like, oh, I just want to be super heavy damage, then I'll just put the DPS ring on, whatever. Okay. I'm reading the chat and you guys are probably like, what the heck is he talking about? Umbra's got to go back to work. Yeah, come back and watch it later. I'll keep it up. And I'll try and advertise when I do these in the future. Today, I just wanted to see if I could pull it off. Skepsis does recoloring in Krita and not with the Godot modulate. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just should recolor it and have separate sprite sheets. Okay, let me figure out what I'm doing here. So I got to get into my... I've got a couple folders here. Let's see. So one of these folders is Penumbra. That's a fun word. That's one of my project names that I started before I built this tutorial, and it's in here. It's at least my personal dev version. Art, tutorial assets. Okay, so in here I've got this gear PNG. This is the sprite sheet we just exported. I'm going to cut that. And I'm going to come over here. I've got the Action RPG tutorial. And under items, sprites, this is where I've got that gear. So I'm just going to paste it in here, replace that file. So this is the file that had those icons that we were looking at in the inventory, right? So now if I come back here, boom, you see how that armor looks. Let's go ahead and select this. So interesting. The sword doesn't appear to have updated. Did I do something weird? I wonder why. For some reason, it's just maybe not reloading that icon, but it did on the armor. So now you can see that even with shading, Like if you pick a color, it kind of recolors the shading. That kind of works. But again, that's not ideal. So if I was designing something to modulate, I might do that. But to who was that was talking about how they recolor their Skepsis, I think. Yeah, recoloring in a different software program is a good way to do it. Another thing that you can do, and I've done this once in the past, and I don't have an example that's easy to show, but I made a shader that just recolored a specific set of colors within my sprite. So you could change the hair color with this shader is what it was. I had a character and you could change their hair color, and that was it. That was all you could change. But what it did is you would pick a color, and then I would darken it and lighten it, because what modulate does is it only darkens, right? It only darkens the colors of the sprite, and so the white gets darker. You lose your whites. And so what the shader did is a white would stay white, right? Because if you lighten something to white, it's just white. But then if you had like a, like this gray, it would just lighten the red a little bit if it needed to, or darken it, right? If that makes sense. Yeah, so let me look back at the questions here. Yeah, swap out on the characters you play and different scenarios come up. What PC do I have? I'm not on a very strong PC. In fact, I have a more powerful desktop, but it has an old graphics card. And so I've got a newer laptop, but I just went and picked this up on sale at Best Buy. It's a Lenovo Lock. It's just got a GeForce 3050 or NVIDIA 3050 card in here, I think is what it is. So it's not super strong. 12 gigs of RAM. It's pretty basic, but for 2D games, I will never notice that. As a programmer, you're always looking for ways to solve things with code instead of art. Yeah, no, I agree. And if you want to modulate, James, that's not a bad idea. But if you're going to go through the trouble of modulating, and if you have like really nicely colored art and you want to maintain things like the highlights, then I would suggest a shader. And because we've talked about this, I'm pretty determined to figure out a shader to do this in Godot so that we can share it. Because I think, learning to work with shaders, even if you just understand them enough to be able to utilize them, is pretty powerful. And then you can change shaders at runtime. And so if you need to change the color of a sprite at runtime, it's pretty easy to do so. Just wanted to see if you can pull it off. A massive success. If you have the ability to make it an upcoming and schedule it, that way we can know when to look. I'll be there for sure. Thanks, Tiki. Yeah, I realized today that I need to do an upcoming, and I was like, well, if I do an upcoming and wait a half hour, I'm going to run out of time to do my stream today. And scheduling stuff. What I'll probably end up doing is as I do these, I'll probably take some time off work so I can dedicate an afternoon or something to it. Yeah, you've got a 2-year-old, Tiki. Those are fun. Kids certainly make finding time hard. Yeah. You need to find a way to work it around the family. I do a lot of my prep work and even some of my recording work on breaks. I work from home some days. So with my job, I work remote part-time and in the office part-time. It's a full-time job, but if that makes sense, I split right between the office and home. And so if I'm at home, I spend lunch breaks working on this stuff. He found, Skepsis says he found that making a base dungeon tile set allows him to then just recolor the sheet for different colored elements in the game. And then Bloodbath says it's fine for 2D game dev. You don't even have a GPU and hard drive? What kind of computer you got, Bloodbath? Sounds cool for sure. Gotta go put your daughter to bed, Jean-Marc. Thanks for coming in. Glad to have you guys. Let's look at making something from scratch in Aseprite here. And somebody asked about tile sets, I think too. Let me show you a couple things that I use. So I can't even think what the term is for this right now. Do I have this level sprite sheet in here? These are all my player sprites. What is nom? This is something my daughter made. That's awesome. My daughters are artistic, as you can see. That's pretty cute. We'll have to make a game with mom in it. Okay, let me pull up doink. Let me see if I can find a good example of this. So when you're making, you know, when I made the tile atlas for the tile map in the AARPG series, I tried to do like a nice looking job, but I kind of cut some corners. Let me show you if I can find this. I've got a really good template that I use, and it's going to be in one of my Game Jam games. I'm off screen here. I'll pull it up in just a second. Oh, this is not actually the example I wanted, but let me open this. Oh shoot, I didn't plan on this. You guys are gonna have to be patient with me for a minute. Have I done anything in 3D? I've only done a couple things in 3D in Godot. I've done some 3D. You know, oddly enough, my last job, I worked for a software company. We made like a CAD type software that had 3D. I didn't do any modeling. I did a lot of texturing work for that. But I do dabble in 3D. I'm not amazing. Yeah, added as a boss. Yeah, he'll be like he'll be like hidden in a little cave or something. Maybe you could befriend him. Somebody had a request to make a companion system, and that's on my list. I don't know if I'll do that, but I love the idea, and Nom would be a fun companion. Sorry guys, I'm getting distracted. Doing live streaming is hard, but I'm surprised I'm just talking nonstop. I'm gonna have some Dr. Pepper. Okay, so I'm just looking through. You guys can see I've got a lot of weird little projects here. Gosh dang it. Super Godot Brothers. Okay, so here we go. Now this is a tile set. Ignore these empty spaces down here. This is this version is better. There's two versions of this. Let me turn off the grid. See, this probably looks kind of weird. And I'm pretty bad at remembering terms sometimes. But what the goal of this kind of a sheet is it's meant to be set up for like auto tiling kind of work. And what you can see here, this is kind of interesting, right? I'm going to go ahead. Let me just make a new layer so I don't ruin anything. And then I'll spend some time, maybe a half hour after this, making something new. But let me get red. So you can see there's kind of like there's like paths through here, right? You guys seeing that? And how these kind of connect. And what this, man, if somebody knows the term for this, let me know. Because I'm just drawing a blank. But what this does, and I'll even open the project and show you where I've implemented this one. Right? All this stuff. When I go in there, I set up a tile, just a tile map that uses this. And then I set up a brush. So I just draw and it just automatically creates. You can see this has like every scenario you could need for a corner or an edge or whatever. Okay. And so let me open up the project that uses that. Yeah, this is for a platformer, but this same concept could be used for top down. This one, obviously you can tell by the design, this is for a platformer, but I've got this, what did I call it? I'm trying to prep stuff. I've got a lot of fun ideas. I've got a big quest manager I've been working on. Where's Godot Brothers? What did I call it? It's got to be, oh, there it is. This is kind of cheesy, but this is fun. This is a little project I built one weekend. I will make a mini series around this, but here we go. Now there is a defect with the sprite sheet. You can see right here, it's got this little notch. I think in the version I was showing you, I cleaned it up, but I haven't imported it yet. So just ignore that. But but you can see this tile map layer. So you can see here's my tile sheet. And in the tile set, if I go over to paint and look at the terrains, not terrains, what am I doing? What do I want? I'm having a brain fart right now, guys. What do we call this? Rendering, modulate, terrains, probably physics layer. Maybe it is. Maybe it is terrains. Why do I have something else going on here? Oh, I got to select one. Okay, here, there we go. Okay, you see these little... You see how I can draw on these? Dang it. I got to pick terrain 0. Okay, there we go. So I've got two terrains set up. I just had to select the terrain. So I've got a terrain set, and then I've got two types of terrain. I've got a regular terrain and a jump through terrain. Okay, and so I've set them up. And so like what this means is if you draw one square, then you're going to get this tile map, right? And so like if I look at my tile map layer, and you can see I've got this tile set applied here, and it's got a terrain set up, and you can see that it has a matching mode. It matches corners and sides. Having this set up is what allows you to do this here. And we did a little bit of this in one of the AARPG tutorials. We had a path, but this is like a really complex version of this. So now if I come in here to this tile map layer and I draw, let's see, I need to go into my terrains and select terrain 0. If I draw 1, it draws that square that you saw I had, right? But if we've got 2, then it connects them. So I can just draw any shape I want, and it's pretty automatic and magic, right? Pretty awesome. Even if I delete, okay? And so this is really powerful for platformers, but even if you're making a top-down game, you could build these terrains in such a fashion that they interact with each other. These are built as separate types of platforms, like a regular terrain and a jump through, right? The jump through only has a top. It doesn't have side edges. This one has side edges. And if I go back to my tile set, so again, you can kind of see, let me just make this big so you guys can see a little bit better. You can see how this is all laid out, right? So it says these corners are just like, well, if you've got a tile on this side, that side, right? But not over here and not over here, then draw this tile or whatever. I mean, you just set them up. And so this is like a standard thing that I just redraw over it. Now, so what I was saying though is you could just draw something where instead of having edges that fade off, it could be like dirt becomes grass. And then maybe over here it's a grass. And you can even match. So like you can mix and match these corner matching things, see? So if you wanted to get really complicated, you could say, okay, well, if there's like dirt over here and grass over here, then draw this different tile, okay? I don't know if that made any sense. I hope that made sense. But that's how I use this sheet. And I mean, it's super easy because then when I look at like the physics layers for this, you can see these ones have physics layers. They're solid. These ones have one-way physics set up. And then if I run this little project here, let me make this full screen too. And I've got a CRT screen shader on this. There we go. There's my little level. Boink. And so it makes it pretty quick. Like you can see these ones here, he's bonking his head on them. Right? These ones have walls. Some of them don't. And then like this one, you can jump up through because it's the one way. And I haven't set up to be able to jump down, but that's something I'll build into it. Okay, there's a little bit of a sidetrack. I got to get back to the questions here. Tile pathfinder, yeah, James. I can't remember the tile connections in Aseprite. Obviously, they call it like a terrain. So, but there is a term for setting this up, and I can't remember what it is. It doesn't really matter. But there you go. This is a really handy thing. I keep this template around, and if I turn my grid back on, I designed this one to work with 32 by 32 pixel grid. Okay, but this is more commonly done with 16 pixel by 16 pixels. I just like having more pixels to push and play with. Tile connections is selecting what borders are connected to the tiles. Yeah. Yeah, Tiki, you're right. In Godot, you can make different layers to have the paths. You could make the different tile sets interact with each other, or you could just make a separate layer where you draw all your paths on. That's right. And then just delete where you don't need it. And have transparent. When he says alpha borders, you can see like the corners of these. That's transparent. So, you know, you saw in the game, they had rounded corners, you know, or like these slope tiles. Yeah. And so really you can make as many layers as you want, but if you design those tile sets, each, you know, type of tile, if you will, dirt, grass, rough grass, water even, if you design it on one of these, then you can set up one of those tile sheets super easy. I'll have to make this available to you guys, but if you look up like you know, platformer tile sheet template, you'll find a lot of things like this. This one is really handy because it's got like every conceivable pattern in one block, which is a little confusing to look at, but once you start working with it, it's kind of fun. So let's make something new. I don't think we ever had any ideas about new things. Yeah, you know, James, you got that return to office mandate. I'm afraid I might get that soon. And then it'll be harder for me to make videos. I'll be a little bit slower, but let's make something new. I think one thing I'd like to show you, man, can I just do show and tell for a minute? Let me pull something up and then I'll make something new. So let's see. Got Super Godot Brothers, sprites. So in this Penumbra, I always make an art folder. And in here, I was working on quite a few things. So I've got characters in here. And so if you've seen my Patreon page, you've seen a few of these. But hero, you know, you've seen the hero, but he's got a portrait. And we've used this portrait in the RPG series. And then I've got a combat sprite sheet for him. Yeah, why? Of course I want to open it here. So I'm going to animate him fighting. Dang, I got to get back to this project. You guys probably had no idea that originally the action RPG series stemmed from me making my real-time strategy RPG. Or not real-time, but turn-based strategy. Okay, so this is just a fun project. But what I really wanted to show you, because this is one of my passionate things, is I've got different characters, and I only have portraits for most of them. So here's a guy, Chaz. And one of these days I'll have to show you how I go about making one of these portraits. This guy's in the tutorial series. And just got a couple fun characters. But, oops, I drew on her. This is, I mean, if I had all the time in the world, I would be finishing this game right now. And I am putting work into it. So, you know, I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I want to publish something on Steam. This game, which its currently working title is Penumbra. This game is something I do plan to publish on Steam. I just don't think I can commit to it this year because I'm so committed to making sure I keep this channel going. And so, you know, it's maybe got, I'm trying to figure out the scope of the game, and I've been working on a prototype, an alternative prototype, to make it a little bit smaller scope so that it's more manageable, because I'd like to try and target like a year development time to finish this game. EGOD Bout 2 is making art with AI. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of AI, but it's a super useful tool. I'm not a huge fan because I like making the art, right? That's my number one thing. So anyways, let's get back to this. Let me close these. But you guys get an insight into what I'm working on. Don't want to save changes to that. So I think one thing to do from scratch is I've got these swords. I really do intend actually to add alternate armor for the player. So if I were to do that from scratch, let's do that for a little bit. You guys can ask questions and I'll try and answer them. Let's see. But I'm going to just draw, like, I think it'd be fun. But since this game has, like, no obvious theme, I think it'd be fun to have, like, a ninja suit. You know, I mean, we made, like, a katana. So if the player could get, like, a ninja suit, I think that'd be awesome. And I'll show you some cool things. So I'm going to do this on mostly 1 or 2 layers. And I usually do that when I'm starting out because it's just easier for me. I like working on 1 layer, which is counter to what a lot of people do. But I'm going to turn on this horizontal symmetry. There's a vertical as well, and it's off centered because I moved it, but you can adjust where that is. And this is a super handy tool because what you're going to see is I'm just going to draw. So like we're going to draw what this ninja suit would look like maybe in the inventory, right? And obviously a suit might be very symmetrical in some ways. So this is just an amazing tool. It's good for drawing faces and even for drawing characters from some views and things like that. But I'm just going to get these to 1 pixel thick lines. I'm going to make like a karate gi kind of a looking outfit maybe. So I'll just draw the outlines or the shape, you know, the silhouette of things in games is really important. I think that's even true for something like this where it's an inventory. Okay, so maybe we draw like he's got pectoral shape to his outfit. I gotta stop that animation. Sorry guys, that's probably driving you nuts. I like to keep this preview up though. That way if I'm zooming in doing something, I can still see what the whole thing looks like. So yeah, so this is gonna be the karate gear. I'm going to go ahead and fill that shape. And then what I would probably do is, I think this is the color. No, I don't know what color it would be. Let's fill it with a purple. But I like to start with just the basic shapes. And I think I'm past wanting that. I want to do something that's not symmetrical here. I want it to have like a line that goes across. And yeah, you know, like a fun karate uniform usually would do. And maybe it's got some thickness to that. And to do those lines, you can click and hold shift. And then each click does another line segment. Super handy way of drawing. Yeah, actually, I kind of like that. I'm going to draw in some shadow shapes now. Man, if you're new to drawing, I would recommend getting some references first and just putting it side by side. The truth about great artists is they always use great references. So, you know, Leonardo da Vinci didn't paint the Mona Lisa just out of the imagination. You know, he didn't just make that up. He studied a person. And so don't feel like you're lame if you had to look at something to draw it. Like, that's totally normal. So that would be my first piece of advice to new artists. I'm trying to figure out how this wraparound thing should look here. And then I'm going to give it a different color. I think, I'm thinking it's going to be darker. Okay. I don't know if I like the purple, but I'm just going with it. So then what I'll usually do is I'll just kind of paint in some, you know, some basic shadows. I like to start with just the shape, get some color in there, draw some shadows. This has got some sleeves, so let's make the sleeves look like it's all here. And then maybe, you know, this is like a whole outfit, so I'm going to just drag it up a little bit. And then maybe it needs to have like some pants down here that are like kind of folded up or something. I don't know. See, chat's quieted down a little bit. Hope this isn't too boring. This is relaxing to me. So, you know, find what you guys like doing with game development and art, and just dedicate some time to it. Even if it's like 15 minutes a day or something. You know, most of my channel, I get pretty stressed out sometimes actually with this YouTube channel. I'll be totally honest, because I'm like stressed about trying to, get the next piece of content, you know? And the worst thing I do to myself is think that I had to sit down and spend a lot of time. There we go. You've got some pants. This is kind of weird, but whatever. But yeah, if you're too worried about getting stuff done to where you don't just spend a few minutes a day doing it, then you just won't get anything done, right? So if you can spend a few minutes a day, you'll find that you get sometimes a lot out of that little bit of time. It's highly productive oftentimes. And boing. It looks kind of weird. I don't know if that quite reads as a folded pants, but you guys could tell me it looks crazy on it. Beats is relaxing watching me make pixel art. And then I think what I would do, I think a ninja suit, I'll give you some education on how to do colors. Real quick, I want to kind of make this look like it's folded a different way, maybe. James Nice says, sounds like his life he teaches as a side job. Yeah. Egod's on the game over video, but having a problem with the mouse not getting detected. I'll switch over to that in just a second. Hopefully I don't forget that comment. This is a common issue with my project because I didn't build it with mouse click in mind early on as a control scheme. So what I'm going to do here to do some more shading, to get a color in between, I drop the dark color, and then down here you've got an alpha slider. So I like to just do this, drag it halfway down and click once. And now if I drop that, it's going to get me a solid, fully opaque color. So now I can just color over with it. And there we go. I've got my, 50% between the two. Do some basic shading. And one thing that I really like doing is softening some of these jaggedy edges by, I'm going to just make the pants dark. But, where you've got these jogging lines like this, I like to take just one section and soften it, kind of like I've been doing. Add an implied little shadow underneath this. Maybe add some lines to mimic folds in the clothing or something here. Yeah, unfortunately I'm gonna have to drop off in a little bit here, but hey, look at that. That almost looks too high fidelity for my little game, but whatever. Now I'm gonna have to try and make this happen on the player next, right? I'm gonna take this black, do the same thing on this section. There we go. So that it's kind of, give it some shading like it's wrapping around. Now, trying to think here. I kind of like that. It should have some highlights and then we'd be pretty good to go, I think. EGOT, I'll look at it. It might be hard because my project has probably had those issues resolved, but if you saying that you managed to get the mouse on every dialogue except the player hub, it's possible that there's another control in front of it that's transparent that is taking the mouse input event. I'll give you an example of that, and then hopefully that'll help you troubleshoot it. But let's give this some highlights. Now there's two ways we could highlight this. We could go really bright. Okay, now that's gonna give, brighter highlights are gonna give the effect of like a shiny object, right? So I'll go ahead and do this and pretend like I want it shiny. And then if you made it shiny, you might need some subtle transitions from the bright highlight and to the other color, kind of like this. But also the sharper the highlight, the shinier it looks like that kind of looks like rubber. We don't want our guy wearing a rubber suit though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and just take that color and there we go. I'm going to drop that. I'm going to turn my contiguous off for my fill and just whoop, give it a more subtle highlight. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, so there we go. Now, if I were to move this over to my player and start making, like, let's say I want to make a version of the player sprite where he's wearing this outfit, I'd first start by just copying and pasting this in there, you know? And I would save a new version of the player, but I'm just going to go ahead and pretend like I've already done that and just make a new layer. Or I've got a reference layer here. I could paste it there. There we go. And then once I have this in here, then I can come in and I can use this as a sample. I can sample colors and use it as a reference. But you know, this version of the player, I don't know if you'd have a purple cape or no cape, right? But you'd have to come through and start redrawing it. That would be a fun exercise. I'd like to hear in the comments, either those of you who are here live or people watching the recording, let me know what kind of things you'd like to see in these pixel art videos. You know, if it's a tutorial about specific things, I think some of those came up already, right? Like how would I make a tile sheet, tile map, or a tile set, right? Or how would I maybe make a player from scratch? I'd be happy to do some of those. And I might even do some editing on those so that we could skip a little bit of the boring part. But, or I mean, it might be boring to watch. I don't know. You guys let me know. Let me know what you think. Because this is not something I've been doing on my channel. It's new. So I want to get a sense for what you guys would like to see. So, you know, another thing I'm doing here is I'm using the base color as the highlight color for this back object. There we have it. I guess this needs a little bit of a highlight. Now, you don't always have to just brighten it and do the opacity trick. You could just come over to the color and just pick something slightly lighter. That works. And some people would scoff at me for just picking colors willy-nilly. If you're someone who has a hard time with getting colors that look nice and color theory, then definitely stick to a palette. And then instead of picking a color down here, you could try and rely on the palette more. Dimitar is talking about the issues with the mouse, saying that one way he solved his issues is tinkering with the layer values and also add a mouse set filter in the show pause menu and hide pause menu functions. Since nothing else worked like he wanted. Just a second, I'm going to get a drink. My throat's drying out. Yeah, 7sim is saying it would be interesting to see a character from scratch. Yeah, that'd be fun. Tiki likes to just watch and interact as I develop. Yeah. Picking up on little tricks. That's awesome. Yeah, maybe I'll do more live streams. Obviously, the hard part about live streams, today's an exception to my typical day. But I think the most I could take out of a day typically would be an hour. And we've been going a little over 2 hours here today. I mean, it would be fun to do like a whole workday stream. And you guys, those of you who have the ability to watch while you're working, just pull it up, ask me questions. Yeah, we'll look at that. I wish, you know, EGOT, if you are, I don't recognize your name from the Discord server. You'll have to go to one of my other videos to find a link to that if you want it. But, you know, if you want to hop in there, some of the, in fact, you know, James Nye, who's been very active on this video, he's like a all-star in that server because he's one of the few people who's like jumping at the bit, chomping at the bit, jumping at every chance. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but he'll download, if you upload stuff to GitHub for someone to look at, he'll almost always make an effort to do that and to kind of help see what he can do to help you troubleshoot. So yeah, Dimitar saying it's a little tricky since it shows on the pause menu. Bloodbath, a lot of art's for your game and art isn't for you. Yeah, I think, to be honest, if you're the kind of person who art's not for you, you have the advantage of not being sidetracked by the art like people like me have, because I'll stop, I'll make a feature and I'll be like, oh, this is starting to feel pretty good, but I want to see it now. And maybe you have this problem too, I don't know. But But for me, since I like doing the art, well, then I'll get totally distracted. But if you could develop features that feel good, even without art, then just imagine how amazing they'll be when you add even decent art. It doesn't have to be amazing, you know? So don't be too discouraged. And if you get pretty serious about something, maybe you'll develop a friendship. I think, you know, Discord servers in general, this is not a pitch just for mine, but hop on Discord. If you find a group that you relate with, you'll, you know, related to game dev, you'll find people who are more into the art and whatnot. Okay, well, there we go. Did a little bit of something from scratch. Maybe not quite as in depth as you guys are hoping for, so we can do more of that in the future. But we've now got alternate gear. I'm going to have to draw the basic outfit that the player has on, right? We should draw that sometime. Maybe next video. I've got maybe 10 minutes before I got to hop off, but yeah, this has been fun. I'm glad this worked out. I was actually super nervous right before I hit play. I kind of had a mini panic. Like, do I want to be doing this? Am I just going to sit there and freeze? One thing I heard is that introverts are pretty good at live streaming, and I'm an introvert. And I guess it's kind of true, because you're good at being in your own world, and interacting with chat is a lot easier than having to interact with a room full of people for me. Yeah, James is on top of the Discord comments. Yeah, I almost feel guilty with him, because I made the Discord just so that there was a place for people to talk about it outside of the videos, because comment section of a YouTube video is not the best place to troubleshoot things. And yeah, skepsis, getting better. Art is a major focus. I would also recommend finding some, you know, if you can't do art yourself, there on itch.io and other places, you can find some good placeholder assets. And not only that, but if you find a placeholder asset that is close to what you want in terms of scale of the artwork and, you know, maybe general style, well, then you can use that as a template and a base, a reference to start making your own. So, oh no, James, it does not feel like you've been taking over. That's not my intent. It's just my nature to kind of be critical of myself, and I feel like, dang, I should be more active on my own server. But you know, and every now and then I find time. I'll probably get better at it over time too, but modify it if it allows. Do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean, Skepsis. You're saying you're glad I made the Discord, but modify it if it allows? Are you talking about having, not modifiers, what's the word? Moderators? I don't know. Egod, I would recommend AI connect to Aseprite. Pixel AI is the name. It costs $20. That's funny. I was looking at an AI that connects to Aseprite just earlier today, and that's a cool option. I got no problem with that. What do you feel about tons of your game copies will be created using your vids? Bloodbath. It doesn't bother me. I think in general, and in the past, actually, I've been concerned about that. Like, if I put something out there, then people are just going to steal it. And I think the people who are going to steal stuff are going to find something to steal, no matter whose it is. But for me, I've learned so much. I mean, I've gotten a lot better. You've seen, if you followed my channel, you've seen I've grown a lot and improved my ability and techniques and just general setup and everything, right, around recording videos. But even my skills in Godot, I force myself to get better, because I know I'm going to be putting this out there, and that adds some pressure. I think a good pressure. If it's too much, then I wouldn't recommend it. But for me, it's the right amount. So yeah, I'm just not too concerned about people stealing it. I will reach a point where there are certain things, you know, like as I start working on my Penumbra project, and I might live stream that, and there's going to be large portions of that I won't make publicly available, right? Like I don't want to develop all of the characters like the ones that I've shown today and just give those away for free, because they represent a significant commitment of my time that I do hope to sell. But anyways, the Bulmer's peak of pressure, where us devs thrive. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, I've just been talking. I think I want to look at Godot real quick. Look, we've got some click issues that come up with the projects. And, you know, if you're using your mouse in your game, you got it can get really tricky to manage your controls. So anytime you create like this inventory, right? This is a control node. So any of these green nodes like this, almost all of these want to take mouse inputs. You can see the filter on this mouse is to stop. What that means is it doesn't mean, it doesn't stop mouse from working. It stops mouse from going through it, right? But obviously mouse will interact with this. So if I run this, what am I in? Playground? Yeah, I can hit F5. If I run this game, stop means that the click isn't going to go through to any other elements. Okay. And so then if we look at these other options like pass and ignore, pass means it will take the input, but it will allow it to go through. And so if you've got a UI that you want to be like over top of stuff and you want the player to click it, and you somehow want it to also be able to go through, then you might want pass. I think that's a pretty rare circumstance though, because let's say you're using clicking for walking in your game, right? So some people I think have done this, or for attacking. Actually, for attacking, it might make sense. You might want to be able to click to attack, but this is blocking that click. And so you could say something like pass, but you could just use ignore. Pass would be useful for something that you want to be able to click on and click through at the same time. Okay, that's what I would use pass for. Which I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head. But the ignore, whoops. The ignore is what you kind of need to do. And now you can change this filter as well. So if you've got a UI that's visible or on the screen, like our player HUD, let me find that. Yeah, here's the scene. So like this player HUD, I've got a lot of stuff that, and it gets bigger and bigger, right? I mean, we've got like boss health down here, and maybe you have other things that are part of this control element. I have this set to ignore, the filter to ignore. Now the problem is I think early in the series, I didn't set these to ignore. And so I think you understand this concept. I don't think this is new, but for anybody who's seeing those comments and thinking, yeah, I have the same problems, because yeah, in all honesty, the mouse issues have kind of plagued my tutorial videos. If you don't ever need to click on it, then just set it to ignore. Like this is a visual UI only, so it's ignore. But then you could change this if you need it to become clickable at times, right? Now, so I'd be curious to see more details about the issue that you're having. So, you know, if you want to join the Discord and put that in there, that's a great place. We can dig into it and see. James says most of the stuff he sees using pass is multi-window. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And Eric Wood, hey all, welcome. I don't know if you just joined. You might have to rewind. I'm going to be wrapping up soon, or right about now, actually. I want to say thanks to everybody who joined. I mean, just the fact that we've got some viewers and some people sticking around and interacting is awesome. And again, you know, add some comments even after I end the video. You know, in the future, what kind of pixel art do you want to see? Do you want to see 3D art? I can do some of that. I can at least do basics of showing you how to get 3D assets in Blender, work on them, texture them, bring them into Godot, stuff like that. I'm not going to show you how to make AAA 3D art though. That's not my jam. But I am kind of a jack of all trades. I like to try everything. So I know enough to be dangerous, as they say. Let's see. Dimitar said he had to change the notifications to use mouse filter since he couldn't attack while clicking over. Oh yeah. Any sneak peek on the next tutorial? Eric is asking. Oh, you just changed your name. Okay. gosh, I don't know what exactly the next tutorial is going to be, but it's going to be, most likely it's going to be related to this gear that we're working on here. If I don't make it, see, there's asset production that I'm doing before I can work on the gear, so I may not do it, but this is, as far as big things upcoming, it's this adding the gear system to the game and the inventory. And obviously we're setting it up so that we can also make our players' weapon change. Okay, so there's going to be videos about that. I don't know. I think that's the best I can give you right now. I don't want to commit to what's coming next because I've got 2 other things. Neither of them are ready. I'm hoping I can record something tomorrow and Saturday or this weekend. So I guess you're just going to have to wait. Oh, it's the player hub. The player hub control. What's the player hub? Player HUD? Yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna, I think we're gonna have to get into Discord. I wish I had time to get into it, but Iggy Mel says, thanks. It was, thanks for doing this. It was fun. I appreciate you joining. Thanks for the stream, Michael. It's been a really chill way to spend my evening while working on my own game. Yeah, I hope you're working more on that, what, I can't think of the name right now. Earthbound. Yeah, that's looking awesome. At evening, you must be, I don't know where you are. I'm curious where you're from. Are you in Europe? And that might be too late. 7sim prefers 2D over 3D. Yeah, I prefer 2D as well. If you're a small team, 2D in many ways is easier. Not every. It's not always easier than 3D, but in a lot of ways it is. Animating, once you have a good 3D model that's rigged, making new animations, I don't know. There's some trade-off there. James Nye's reaching out. Yeah, get together with him. Get in the Discord. Yeah, let's see what we can do. Well, thanks, guys. I am going to be working on a day-night cycle. Yeah, we'll add some point lights when we do that. Dynamic light on a player. Oh, that's a good thing for a ring or an amulet, isn't it? Yeah, so he's got like a lantern effect. Yes, the Earthbound fan game. That's awesome. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. I wish I had like an outro I could put in here because I've got an amazing group of Patreon supporters who I am extremely grateful for. Maybe I'll figure that out so next time I can roll those credits before I log off. But I appreciate you guys, and I wish you the best of luck on your projects. And again, please comment if there's things you want me to work on in the future. And hopefully we can do more of these pixel streams in the future as well. It's been a lot of fun. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. I guess I figure out how to stop the stream.